Greetings. My name is Timothy Daly. I'm a county extension agent with University of Georgia Extension here in Gwinnett County. We're going to have a topic of our program tonight are herbs in the garden. This happens to be one of my favorite topics because I grow a variety of herbs myself, and they're pretty easy to grow. And we'll discuss what they need in order to grow well, and then we'll cover some of the herbs that we can grow in our area. And there's a lot. Mention that what are herbs? Well, that's kind of a loaded question there. Since prehistoric times, herbs have been used for food and medicine. Today, they are perhaps best known for their contributions to good living, to season food, provide a pleasant fragrance, or even add interest to the garden and beautify the landscape. Many modern medicines include plant chemicals, either natural or synthesized. So, throughout history, herbs have been used for medical purposes before modern medicine. And as I mentioned, they're still used today. Herbs, plant uh, plant chemicals are still being used today. Herbal medicines, both. So, what do herbs need? They need to have good soil, usually a soil pH of 6 to 6.5. They need to have that needs to have organic matter added to the soil and uh, and good drainage. It's very important to have that good drainage. Most of them need to have good drainage. Um, make sure you break up the soil good. Add some organic matter to the soil, some peat moss, compost, topsoil before you plant your herbs. That kind of helps them. Raised beds are another thing. Herbs are great in raised beds. You can use all sorts of you use a variety of materials to make raised beds, but don't use railroad cross ties. Avoid those. Um, like these right here with cinder blocks. It's best that they be no wider than 4 feet, but they can be as long as you want. Um, so that 4 feet, so you can work on them. The only thing about raised beds, and it's true with anything above ground like containers and hanging baskets and so forth, is they dry out a lot quicker. So you need to water them, stay on top of the water. This is a traditional knot garden, a variety of herbs. Unfortunately, this was at the botanical gardens in Atlanta Botanical Gardens, and unfortunately, this garden has been razed. They tore it down and put something else in its place, which I thought was a shame. But a home herb garden, there's a variety of many. You can see some what they are. They're mixed in with ornamental flowers. This is looks like thyme growing there at the down mixed coming in amongst the rocks. We'll talk about thyme and the other herbs shortly. Patio, potted containers, hanging baskets, definitely can be used. They're very useful in pots and containers. I mentioned again, you just make sure they stay watered, especially because they're above ground and they have sun on them. And if the wind's blowing, especially that, they're going to dry out a lot quicker. So you need to stay on top of it. A lot of these herbs are drought tolerant, but you still need to kind of keep an eye on the water, especially if they're in pots. Containers, window boxes can be used in that. And during the winter months, you can grow them indoors. With your kitchen herbs, for example, is basil, which doesn't grow well can't grow out in the cold weather. It's not cold hardy. Collecting herbs for the landscape. They have many aesthetic values in the landscape, especially when mixed with other perennials. I personally love perennials and got a collection of them in my own along with the herbs. So they're really easy to work with and put amongst perennials. Herb cultivation, we'll talk a little bit about that. They're some very easy to grow. They require at least average soil moisture and light. And once established, many are self-maintaining, adapted well to drought-tolerant landscapes, street plantings, and so forth. Um, they most of them need to have full sun. And maybe they can take a little bit of afternoon shade or morning shade if they need full sun. Although mints can they can tolerate more shade, but still they need sun. We're going to go into some of our herbs. We'll talk about scent and decorative herbs. This is more used for scent rather than for food. Although our first one, and this hyssop, can be used for food. Um, it is a bee plant. Bees love this plant. They can grow up to um, they can potentially grow over 3 feet tall, maybe even higher. They have an anise or licorice scent and are used as flavoring in salads. Their seeds can be used in cookie cakes and muffins. The small flowers are arranged in dense swirls that are crowded along the spike, and they're replaced by smooth, oval-shaped nutlets, seeds. Um, very nice plant to grow. As mentioned, bees and other pollinators love it. You got a pollinator garden? Put this in here. I've seen butterflies buzzing around some of that I have. Now, as I said, these other ones aren't that I'll show you that aren't for food, but they do have a lot of their fragrance and attractive. Artemisias are their gray green or silver foliage, either ferny or slightly cut leaves. There's southern wood and wormwood are the most popular, and they favor full sun, and they can handle the clay soils. They're perennials, and they have a tendency to grow woody and leggy, so you'll need to prune them back periodically, especially in the spring. They'll need to do that. They're strong scented. Some say it's useful for repelling moths and fleas. So that might be helpful, especially if you got pets. Plant some of them around your house. Particularly decorative in the garden is a contrast plant among colors and greens of other plants. So they're great. They provide a color. You know, as mentioning, you got your green and other colors in your garden, and this is like it's a contrast with its foliage. Very attractive. Feverfew is a type of it's related to it's actually a type of chrysanthemum, very fragrant flowers and foliage, and you have many different, can be used in many different landscape, quite prolific bloomers. And once established, they're very easy. A close cousin to that, feverfew, is cosmary, which is another chrysanthemum. Pockets of dark green functioning in small spaces as a ground cover. It's sometimes called a Bible leaf plant because it was used as a fragrant marker in Bibles. A midsummer bloomer with small yellow flowers, cosmary produces large, uh, fragrant leaves, which tend to look scraggly as the season progresses. It is a hardy perennial, as I mentioned, closely related to the feverfew. It will spread through underground rhizomes, and needs to be divided every couple of years. Very nice plant to have. Germander is a low-growing evergreen subshrub and herb in the mint family that is native to the Mediterranean regions. It grows 6 to 18 inches tall. It can spread up to over a foot, maybe 2 feet. In late spring and summer, pink tubular flowers grow from the leaf axils and are attractive to bees. They're aromatic. The leaves are aromatic, shine with scalloped edges, and they have a horizontal extending stems that form an attractive mound. Excellent edging plant or a low-clipped hedge. Somewhat looks like a boxwood. The only thing is that really harsh winters can sometimes affect the plant. So if we got temperatures like down in the single digits, you'll need to cover that. They look good in rock gardens. They can be sometimes massed together as ground covers. Lavenders are several different types. It comes from the Latin lavare, meaning to wash. I know that uh, laundromats in Spanish, I see the word lavanderia, which comes from that Latin word. The Spanish is Latin based. It's still used today to perfume and bath and cosmetic products. And it can be grown from seed cuttings or transplants. It's one of the most popular plants for the herb garden. And there are also lavender people who actually grow this and sell it. There's a pretty good market. I know a lady uh, down in Rockdale or Walton County, I can't remember where it was, somewhere down there that had a lavender farm and would sell this and had a pretty good market for it. They're the tallest species. There's English lavender, is one of many species. Spanish lavender, which is a little more rounded. French lavenders, they require full sun and well-drained soil. Definitely well-drained soil. I lost one because the soil wasn't well-drained. Um, Growers recommend growing lavenders on mounds to ensure good drainage. Um, it produces gray, white, or purple to blue-purple flowers and a strongly scented needle-like gray-green leaves. Even the woody stems are fragrant. Beautiful plant, fragrant, can handle dry conditions. Bees love it, butterflies love it, and so forth. Now, scented geraniums are related, are much like our regular conventional geranium. They have leaves that are scented. Coconut, rose, peppermint, nutmeg, apple, cinnamon, and combinations of lemon, rose, and others. Most varieties produce small, attractive flowers and leaves that are fragrant when touched. Some of them are multicolored leaves. Or most are compact, some can grow 2 feet tall. Excellent container plants, and since they are not cold hardy like conventional geraniums, they need to be moved indoors. They will grow in sun or part shade and prefer uh, you need to prune them back to occasionally to discourage legginess, and they're generally propagated through cutting. So you prune them and you can propagate new geranium plants. So definitely have a couple of these around. That's again, they're great in containers. Sweet woodruff is a favorite herb for shade and makes an attractive ground cover. You see its narrow, bright green leaves growing in successive star-like whorls, attractive. Perennial herb, goes 6 to 8 inches tall, does not have a fragrance unless it's crushed, and it releases a sweet, pleasant odor reminiscent of fresh hay. It can tolerate shade, but it needs to have well-drained soil. I bought a few of these, about 3 of these plants earlier this year, and the area they were in, I thought the soil was better drained than it was, and it wasn't, and then I lost all of them. So I learned the lesson. So I'm gonna have to get some more and plant them where they won't lose them with better drained soil. So yeah, it's a nice plant to have. Lemon verbena is one of the most fragrant herbs with perennials. It does tend to leaf out later in the spring. And older plants can become woody, adding interesting shapes to the perennial border, can be used as a landscape specimen plant. It's a perennial. All parts of the plant are scented lemon. Um, it is one of it can it grows it can grow up to several feet tall, and it's edible. This is one that is edible as well as a decorative, and it needs to be in full sun. So a very attractive plant, has little flowers, easy to grow, drought tolerant, like a lot of them. Tansy is a tall perennial with fern-like foliage, yellow button flowers in summer, grows in full sun, and will spread by means of underground rhizomes. Those are like stem-like structures underground. It has a pungent scent that is sometimes used as an insect repellent. Both leaves and flowers are useful in fresh or dry arrangements. It used to be a medicinal herb, but now it's known to be toxic. So this is not something you want to eat, but it's great for fragrance and beauty in the yard, and and for fragrance. Tarragon is a perennial, fragrant, herbaceous. Leaves silvery green, narrow segments with silvery hairs, flowers small, drooping greenish yellow. This can be used in food, sauces, salads, soups, and other types. This is definitely a type, one of the few that can be. And these full sun, I got some of this growing at home, and it does quite well. It's another one. I'd like to get some of this if I could find out someone where I could buy it. Is lavender cotton Santolina. Good for it says it only lives 10 to 15 years, but that's long enough for most people. As the center opens up with age, it is utilized as a ground covering massing, edging bags, planters, great for rock gardens, rock walls, and pure sand. It will grow in pure sand. It's rather arid, likes dry conditions and thrives. Very fragrant scent. I said I'm gonna keep looking for this. You know what? I tell you, nurseries. You get your Home Depots and Lowe's, and they can have pretty good plants, but their selection, somewhat limited. To recommend some of these little independent nurseries, and not that I'm endorsing anybody, but I would recommend you check out Family Tree Nursery in Snellville or Randy's Nursery over here in Lawrenceville. They have a very nice selection of plants, although they don't have this. I haven't seen it yet. And as we're moving into the fall, this is the time of the year to be planting perennials and herbs as well as trees and shrubs. I had a class last week on planting trees and shrubs. So, visit one of these nurseries. And there's others around you can look up. I know there's Pikes. There's one up there in Suwannee, McGinnis, and one, I think it's Peachtree Industrial Boulevard. There's another one over at Cocoa Hills. And now they tend to be a little more upscale in price, but you have a excellent selection. Now we're going to go into herbs for culinary uses. These are herbs that are used that can be used. Now, what I told you that were not for culinary, except for those three that I mentioned: the lemon verbena, the tarragon, and the anise hyssop, you can use for food, but the others are not for food. So we're going to specifically talk about what you can, the ones that you can eat. Comfrey is an oblong. It leaves to be appear to be stacked one upon the other, larger at the base of the plant than near the top, and forms a short, large clump. Has oblong, fleshy perennial root. Drooping bellflowers that are white, purple, or yellow, and grows year round, tolerates cold weather. You do need to cut it back in the winter to encourage new succulent leaf growth in the spring. Best time of the year is to plant it in the spring. Saying it's one of the best times, although fall, there's nothing wrong with that. 2 to 4 inches deep. Plant them good. And you see these pretty little bellflowers. They're beautiful. Bay laurels, I got one of these. Small evergreen tree that produces widely used bay leaves. You need to grow it in a container because it's not cold hardy. Well, I'm gonna have to move mine indoors when it starts getting cold. I'm probably gonna be like the orange tree that I have. I'm moving up to the office lobby. So if you come up to our office, you might, if we ever do open up again, you might see them growing out there. It thrives on sun to partial shade, needs moist soil. Leaves can be used fresh or dried. So this is a great, really a nice plant to have, but remember, it's not cold hardy, so you need to bring it in. Now, if you live in South Georgia or Florida, you'd be fine, but not up here. And you know, I don't know what type of winter we're going to have, but with the way, as crazy as the weather's been, or as everything that it seems to be that way over the past year, anything's possible. We may be buried into several feet of snow for all we know. Borage. An annual, grows well in drier soils. It's an annual, so it dies out when the weather gets cold. It's grown primarily for its flowers and its leaves. Produces bright blue star-shaped blossoms in the summer. It needs full sun or light shade, good drainage, and a nice little plant to have. Attractive, but remember it's only an annual, so it's really kind of too late to grow this outside. If you have any, you can just bring them indoors. I'm gonna do that. Mountain mint. This is a native plant. I would love to get some of this. Abundance in the Appalachian area, fragrant that tolerates shade. 2 to 3 feet tall, develops gray-green leaves at the end of its branches with teeny greenish flowers at the very tip. The plant appears to have from a distance to have branches ending in white blooms. Bees love it. It does need to be pruned on occasions to keep it from getting too leggy. Attracts and it provides food for beneficial wasps. These are wasps that are parasitoids of numerous pestiferous insects, especially caterpillar insects. So planting some of this around your vegetable garden, especially if you're ones that don't particularly want to use a lot of pesticides or don't use any pesticides, bringing in these beneficial insects is a good thing to do. Oregano. Oh, this is a nice one. It can be, they say it can be a little invasive, but not that bad. There's several different types: Greek oregano, Italian oregano, golden oregano. There's also Cuban oregano. They're different types of they're different types of plants, but they have a similar flavors. Used in many Mexican, Italian, and Greek dishes. Leaves of culinary oregano are slightly fuzzy. Small flowers are pink to white. Um, so really, this is a nice plant to have. You might need to get some of that. They do have a trouble with spider mites. A little small, they're actually not insects, they're arachnids, and they appear sucking mouth parts, and you see the discoloration of the foliage. Use some insecticidal soap to spray on that. These are organic, these are like dishwashing detergent, but it's formulated for insecticides. Safer Soap is one brand that's sold, and they're very low toxicity and will quite effective. And also on things like aphids and mealybugs, if you got problems with that too. But like all pesticides, read label directions, all the directions. Chervil is lacy leaves resembling parsley, but a light shade of green. The flatheads have delicate white flowers. It's an annual that can grow about 2 feet tall. Light green leaves that resemble finely cut parsley. White flowers, the flavor of chervil tastes a lot like a mix of parsley and anise. Blooms in summer. Remove the flowers after they finish blooming. So yeah, I'm not as familiar with this. It's another one on my list to plant. I'm trying to grow a variety of them, and I don't have all of them, but I grow a lot of them. Sweet marjoram, considered is very much like oregano. Stem grow like oregano. It grows woody with age and can be pruned back once or twice a season to produce new growth. So great. This is another one. I have some of this at my home as well. Thyme. Well, there's many different, it's a versatile landscape plant with many different types. English thyme is the most common. It has fine leaves and slightly woody stems. There are nearly 400 different varieties of thyme. most popular are lemon thyme, caraway thyme, golden thyme, and mother of thyme. Creeping thyme makes an excellent ground cover alone or between stepping stones or as a spreader plant on garden walls. Great for rock gardens. And when it gets older, some of the stems get woody and will need to be cut back. But you see, like this is variegated. There's many different types. Again, they're great for container gardens, rock gardens, border edges, finely textured, very fragrant, used in many dishes, easy to grow once established. Some more pictures of thyme. Now, they're not the best that you can see. Parsley. Well, parsley is a lot of people, when they think of parsley, they think of it just being as a garnish on dishes, but it has other uses as well. Two types, curled and flat leaf parsley, can be direct seeded, though germination takes 2 to 3 weeks. It's a biennial. A lot, it's best to buy as a transfer. So, sorry, lemongrass. Requires moisture for continual growth. Prone to leaf miners, so probably that there are little flies that lay their maggots. They crawl in the leaves. Maybe controlling off and destroying infected leaves, and some of that safer soap insecticidal soap might help. Cut back in early spring as the new growth is beginning to emerge. It's also used for ornamental purposes. So yeah, parsley, and it grows good, but it's more of likes the cooler weather. So now's a good time to plant it. So yeah. Lemongrass is an Asian plant, has thin gray-green leaves and adds graceful vertical line to the landscape. Citral, which is an essential oil found in lemon peel, gives lemongrass its sour lemon flavor and fragrance. The only thing is it doesn't tolerate our cold temperatures. So you need to cut it back and put it in a pot and bring it indoors until the winter's over. Like a few of the other herbs we talked about, like bay leaf. Lovage, I got some of these. It has similar flavor, kind of like celery, good substitute for celery, which is hard to grow. Down here is an ideal addition to soups and salad. Perennial, sometimes real hot temperatures, like our summers can stress it out. And grow in full sun or partial shade and needs rich, moist soil, but don't let it go to flower. It does get stressed with the hot temperature. So maybe if it's in a little partial shade, it might be okay if you do that, but not deep shade. Rosemary, this is an excellent plant, native to the Mediterranean area, sunny growing conditions, well-drained soil, drought resistant. It's attractive shrubby perennial that can reach 3 to 5 feet in height. So they produce lavender, white flowers, very fragrant, used in many dishes, can be used as a shrub. I've seen them trained into topiaries, little Christmas trees, sometimes are sold as rosemary in pots. They do need to have good drainage because poor drainage, they deteriorate, and real extreme cold conditions can cause some dieback. I've had that happen with mine, but I have areas that'll die out, but it ultimately will come back. So it's really pretty hard. You have to, just depends on how healthy the plant is, the specific climate you're growing it in. Rosemary got many different forms. Again, they can be used as topiaries. Easy plant to grow once it's established. You give it the right conditions, it just take off and take care. It doesn't have a whole lot of pest problems. Sage, common sage, which is a type of salvia, attractive gray-green, wrinkled leaves and lavender flowers. Mature sage grows woody, becomes bush-like. Once established, it does well on rainfall alone. It demands well-drained soil. there's many different types, including multicolored sages. This really is actually more used for ornamental purposes than the culinary purposes. I need to put this in the other section. But they're very attractive and grow well in the landscape, used in a lot of flower beds. Nasturtiums, I like nasturtiums. They're sometimes a little finicky about things. They need to they're annuals. They produce these colorful flowers and peppery tasting flowers, and leaves are edible. And the seeds, it's best to soak the seeds in the hot and warm water for about 24 hours before planting. Put them out. Once they're planted, you don't want to transplant them. They don't like being transplanted, and they do need good drainage as well. But they're pretty nice flowers. One of my all-time favorites. Catnip is a perennial that grows a couple feet high, needs full sun and good drainage. Has these little colorful blue to lavender flower. It says it makes cats to be playful. Some cats like it real playful. It makes them, I don't know, you could say it makes them drunk. Hard to say. But they're great. They're real easy to grow and quite abundant. Basil, one of my favorites, one of the most flavorful, but this is an annual. So it doesn't, this is one, I got some I'm going to bring indoors this year. There's a variety of different types grown. There's multiple types. It can be either direct seeded or transplant. It needs full sun and well-drained soil. There's you can see on there's Thai basil, globe basil, lemon basil, and on the right here we have purple leaf basil, which is quite commonly grown. And though it's not an annual, this purple leaf basil will reseed itself every year. They like to produce lots of seeds, and where the other basil doesn't normally do, it doesn't do that as much, but this will reseed itself. This is it in flower. Really, you need to cut the flowers off, because that sometimes takes the flavor and fragrance away. Chives, there are onions that are very easy to grow, are propagated by division. They're like little mini onions. Bears lovely edible flowers in late springs. And they have a mild onion flavor that's excellent in many different. And another closely related one are garlic chives. White flowers in late springs are usually taller but less showy than the pink. They have the white flowers in the late summer. There are a lot of them that have been bloomed recently. Mine have been in bloom, and they attract bees and other pollinators, prolifically attract. Dill is it has these umbel-shaped flower inflorescences that produce the dill seed. An annual, it may be seeded several times through the summer, full sun, but tolerates dry soil. And a cousin to it is fennel. Is a biennial herb, although I've had them coming back more than 2 years in my garden. Culinary and landscape uses, several types, the familiar green feathery fennel. There's bronze fennel with maroon growth, Florence or Finocchio fennel with enlarged stalks. It does, mine that I've planted has done very well. Fennel, dill, and a few other things tend to attract these little wasps, these little parasitic wasps we were talking about earlier, and bringing them to your garden. Bees like them too. Coriander, cilantro, or cilantro refers to the leaves of this plant, sometimes called Chinese parsley, while coriander refers to Um, it is a hardy annual, but it doesn't like to be transplanted once it's planted. It doesn't do that well in our heat. I've had issues, but you know, you might be wanting if you grow it, put it in a little shade that might help. Um, it's the the southern heat can make it difficult to grow, but putting a little shade might help. I've had a difficult time trying to grow this. Haven't had that much luck. But others, I've heard that from other people too. But I'm gonna try it in a different spot next year. Mints. Oh, there are many types of mints. This is actually from my garden. This picture. 35 commercially available species. Most common are spearmint and peppermint. I have there's another type called sweet mint. They're distinguished by their square stems. Peppermint usually has a black stem. There's a variety of others. There's even a chocolate mint. Um, doesn't it requires moisture? It does require. It needs a little more moisture, and can tolerate wet areas better. One thing to and even some shade, but one thing to remember: mints can be invasive in nature. So once they start growing, they'll grow. They can really. You got to kind of watch them that they don't grow out of bounds. There's spearmint, nice one. Well, pests, we talked a little earlier about some of the pests that they get, like the white flies and the leaf miners, and using them. But this right here is the larva of a swallowtail caterpillar on fennel. So a lot of these, really, these herbs don't have a whole lot of pest problems. So that's one of their advantages. They're relatively pest free. Deer don't really like to mess with them because of the fragrance. I mean, they will eat them if they're hungry enough. Plant them around your house. Well, I say that, but hostas don't. They need shade. Diseases, yeah. Sometimes this is rosemary getting some. This is root rot disease. Tends to be problematic on rosemary if in a lot of these herbs if they have poor drainage. How do you store airtight containers? Label, don't break up the leaves in a dark, cool place. Drying herbs, tie them upside down in a dark, cool place that has plenty of airflow. If you're getting them on seeds, you can see the one on the right getting the seeds. This is a picture of that lady's lavender farm. All the lavender growing, hanging upside down and drying. This is over at the University of Georgia. They have the UGA garden, which is on Millage down near the botanical garden. This is them growing anise hyssop, putting it on a screen to dry. They have a room where they store their herbs and their vegetables, and it's like just perfume walking in there. So a picture of dried herbs in jars used for culinary purposes. This right here is a picture of the depot at Emory University. I don't think these herbs are here anymore. They've done torn that place up because they've been doing construction. You can see it in the background. It's been continually construction for many years now. Because I know people who work there, and you can see some of the lavender growing up front. It looks like some thyme and oregano and some of the mints in the background. There's another picture of these. I think those are maybe scented geraniums there. Kind of hard to see by the stairs, and then some thyme, and then bee balm or monarda, which we didn't talk about. I'm going to add that for the next presentation. Growing there, that's a perennial that attracts butterflies and bees and fragrance. Picture of an herb garden in the Chatham Garden, Botanical Gardens. It's a little garden club garden on I think that's Eisenhower near Truman Causeway in Savannah. So ever in Savannah, go check it out. Uh, I always go check it out. I go to Savannah every year, but with the situation we're in this year, I didn't get to go. This is at the State Botanical Gardens in Athens. Pretty places to go and see herbs. Of course, This is at the Atlanta Botanical Gardens, herb walls, a wall of herbs, many different types, real creative. This is a picture of the Bonnie plant farm in Union Springs, Alabama, which us agents went on a guided tour some years ago. It's about 40, 50 miles southwest of Montgomery, Alabama. They have sites, multiple growing sites all over the country, but this is their headquarters. They grow mainly herbs and vegetables, and they have contracts with the Home Depots, Lowe's, and Walmarts. There's some pictures of, looks like sweet mint. That's where where it all comes from. You buy Bonnie plants, they're originate. You see their trucks all over making deliveries. I know they're busy with their fall growing vegetables, the collards, broccoli, cabbage, and stuff like that coming this time of year. All right, there's my contact information. And if you have any questions, anybody have questions, put them in the chat box.